Like the order of the months?
Good. How do you know that? You just memorized it. Okay, you say it. Day school education, kids. It's worth something.
Worth very little. Something.
So I also, but my grade school teacher taught me the song, so I can try to help you with that. Nissan. We start from Nissan. It's the first one. Iyar Siva Tammuz Av Elul Tishrei Kislev Tevet Shvat Adar. That's it. Very simple. Okay, write down the dates. I don't. I have a pencil actually. Yeah, here. There's a pencil here. Pass this down, please. If you do it once, you get half marks. You do it twice, you get 70%. Do it 3 times, you should get 100.
When you ask for the date, do you want the date of like
the number?
The holiday started at night. So do you want the day before the night or the day of the date of that night?
The Jewish date starts at night. That's the date.
Okay.
Baruch Ata Adonai, Heinu Melech Haolam, Shakol Yeh B'Dvaro. Some of them are going to have a range. Just reminding you. Meaning it starts there's a start date and a concluding date. Some holidays are more than one day.
Yeah, we have to write it.
You have in here. When you're done?
Yeah.
Perfect. Almost right. Few imprecisions. Some was by accident and some just he didn't complete. We'll take it up in a second.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Yosef,
Show me.
I don't remember the government holidays as well as I remember.
I understand. Hang on one second.
Not sure about Purim.
Okay, pretty good. About 80 passes back, please. Pinchas. Close, but no cigar there. So let's take it up. And we'll make things a little more precise. Do you need another minute, or you're good? How are you doing on this? Yeah, okay. You weren't here, so obviously you're not expected to know what you weren't here for. But Stephen, you're done?
Little bit.
Okay. So it's briefly. I don't want to spend the whole time on it. Let's go over it. You'll tell me.
I picked the question I asked you. I understand. I picked the later one instead of the earlier one, and a bunch of them.
Let's take a look. What is the date of Pesach? 15 to 21. It's a 7-day holiday. 15 to 21. 7-day holiday, 15 to 21, right?
Yes.
It's not on your page. There's also like a commemoration day. I didn't put it into the chart because it would just confuse you. It's the day that we brought the sacrifice. That was on the 14th of Nisan. We don't say Tachnun on that day.
Commemoration?
It is a little commemoration, right? But I didn't want to confuse the chart. We call the 7-day holiday Pesach. Although, technically, maybe we should call it Chag HaMatzot. And the day before, the 14th, is the day we bring the Korban Pesach. But we don't have a Korban for 2,000 years already. So we just call the holiday Pesach. So, but it is 15, it's the date in the Torah, 15th of Nisan till the 21st, 7 days. That is the correct answer. The Omer was brought on the 16th, but so that's true, but there is an Omer period. We count the Omer from the 16th
50 days.
for 49 days, yeah. And the 50th is Shavuot, right? So you could write the Omers from the 16th until the 5th of Sivan, but it's okay. The 16th is when the Korban Omer was brought, and when we start counting the Omer. Korban, the sacrifice, yeah. Yom Ha'atzmaut Heyar, it changes. It can be the 4th also.
Really?
Yeah, because of the government of Israel. It's always the 5th. It's supposed to be the 5th. Heyar is the day, but to avoid this Shabbat desecration by all the festivities and the ceremonies, the Knesset decided that whenever it falls out on a Thursday or a Friday or a Sunday, we don't hold it on that day. We push it off, forward, backwards, to the middle of the week.
So
It could be the 4th, 5th, 6th, yeah.
All right.
I think some years it's even the 3rd. I have to check on that, but just remember the 5th of ER, but know that it, put a star on it next to, because it changes based on the day of the week that year. Pesach Sheni is on the 14th of ER because it's a month after the first Korban Pesach, which was on the 14th of Nisan. I was telling you that it's not on your chart. A pencil, yes, sure. Right? Pesach Sheni, the second chance to bring the Pesach offering a month after the first time. But the first offering, it's not on your page. But the second chance is on your page, 14th of ER. 14th is Erev Pesach, nowadays. Not up to that yet. We're still going in order. We're up to Pesach Sheni. Pesach Sheni is the 14th of ER. Then we have Lag BaOmer, always comes out on 18th of ER? 18th. 14, then 18, and then Yom Yerushalayim is the 28th. That doesn't change as much.
14th?
28 of ER. We just had it Friday. Shavuot, Bezrat Hashem, in 2 days, the 6th of Sivan. We went over that. Of course, the 17th of Tammuz, 9th of Av, you have the answer within the question. Elul, the Shofar and Slichot, it's the whole month, so you don't have to put in dates, but you could just put in, 1 through 30 or 1 through 29 or whatever it is. But the truth is, we don't start saying the Shofar or the Slichot on day 1. It's Rosh Chodesh. Start day 2. I'm not sure about the shofar. Shofar, maybe we do. Slichot, we don't, obviously, on Rosh Chodesh. But the shofar, we do start, I think, on the Aleph Elul. So shofar would be 1, Slichot would be 2, and then it takes you all the way till the last day of Elul, which is 29 days, if I'm not mistaken. Rosh Hashanah, don't forget, it's 2 days, 1 and 2. 1 and 2. This is our custom for many thousand years plus. Even inside the land of Israel, we keep 2 days of Rosh Hashanah. Maybe you forgot that Tzom Gedalia is there. It's on the 3rd day of Tishrei. Yom Kippurim is on the 10th. Sukkot, similar to Pesach, The dates in the Torah, 7 days. From 15th
20.
till the 21st. And then Shmini Atzeret, which is Simchat Torah in this country, is on 22. Okay? Shmini Atzeret is 22. Cheshvan has no holidays. Chanukah starts on the 25th of Kislev. Continues for 8 days. Tevet, 10th of Tevet, is on the 10th of Tevet. Tu B'Shvat is on the 15th of Shvat. Adar, so Purim is on the 14th and 15th.
Oh,
And the fast is always on the 13th.
Mm-hmm.
Fast is always on the 13th, and then main day of Purim is on the 14th. But in walled cities, like Yerushalayim, it's on the 15th.
So fast of Esther is 14,
13.
13 or,
No or.
so it's 13.
Fast of Esther is always
13.
on the
Okay.
13th.
And
Yom
Purim,
Kihila Lakol, the Esther, the Gemara says. It's a day of gathering for everybody.
and the Purim festival.
Purim festival is on the 14th, and in walled cities, it's on the 15th.
Got it.
Got it?
Got it.
All right. Seder.
Yefeh.
Baruch Hashem. Let's open up our books about the festivals, where you have to conclude. We didn't say anything yet. It's our last opportunity. I have an extra one here. It's our last opportunity to speak about Shavuot. We spoke about so many themes in one tiny day. We talked about that it's the culmination of the 7 weeks. We talked about that it's the harvest festival, celebrating the first harvest of the wheat. After we celebrated the harvest of the barley on Pesach. We spoke about that it's the beginning of the first fruits, not only the harvest of the grains, but there's fruits, the fruits that ripen in the summer. They start to ripen and you start bringing their bikurim. Not only with the first grain, the special sacrifice of the first grain, which is called the Shtei Halechem, the 2 loaves, which were brought in the temple, but it's also the beginning of the time period when every individual can bring their own fruits, whatever they happen to have in their properties. They bring them to. By the way, I think the first fruits were only brought from the 7 species: pomegranates, grapes, olives, figs, and dates. Also, we saw there's 2 rabbinic names which are associated with the festival: Atzeret, gathering, sort of ingathering, both physical and spiritual, of the previous preparatory period, and finally Chag Matan Torah. We understood how, in the context of the original story of Hashem revealing himself to the Jewish people, that revelation took place on 6th, or we commemorate it on the 6th, even if it might have happened on the 7th. And this night, when we prepare for the revelation, we saw yesterday, I believe, 2 major approaches. One is that we have to participate in putting the jewelry on the queen, on the bride. The bride's going into the canopy. And also that we're somehow showing our attitude towards Torah, our love of Torah, by studying all night long. But as we saw yesterday, it's not an obligation. What to study, different approaches. What's the best book in Judaism?
Torah.
Nope. There's so many books of Torah. Everything's called Torah. All these books are called Torah. That's a good. That's one option. But we call also Nevi'im Torah. We call Ktuvim Torah. We call Mishnah Torah. We call Gemara Torah. We call this class. What is this? Not a Torah class? We call a class in ethics Torah. Everything is called Torah. So when I ask you, what's your favorite Torah book? That's what I mean. In the larger context of Torah, Judaism. What's your favorite Jewish book?
Kohelet.
Kohelet. Good choice. Anybody else? You say Bereshit.
Shmot.
Shmot. Wow, you guys are so biblical. I just gave you the range of 3,000 years of Jewish literature, and you're going back to the Bible. Do you understand what I mean by a Torah book, a Jewish book? Here I have a Jewish book, The Road to Purity. It's The Laws of Purity by Rav Eliyahu. Here's a book by Rav Moshe Chaim Luzzatto, The Path of the Just. It's an amazing book. I teach it every Wednesday evening in where I live. It's a great, great book. There's so many. Here's a book. There's a commentary on Shir Shirim by Art Scroll. This might be your favorite book. Yeah, I have this great. This really is one of my favorite books. A collection of essays by Rav Zevin about different topics. There's so many Jewish books. Here's a new Jewish book. Just came out last year. It's called Strauss, Spinoza, and Sinai: Orthodox Judaism, Modern Questions of Faith. A little bit highbrow, intellectual discussion of many questions of faith in the modern world. What a great Jewish book! Here's another one, Mastering Life. There's so many Jewish books out there. What's the best Jewish book that exists? So you answer me the Torah, you're safe. Okay, you can't compete with the authorship. Right? Somebody once, I heard a beautiful explanation. What's so special about the Tanakh? You know, and there's actually a teacher who was teaching people studying for conversion. And he he said to me how he showed them how the literature is so beautiful and the poetic and there's so much meaning in each word. And I told them the following story. When you go to a library or a bookstore, you've all heard of the author called Tom Clancy. Yeah? Yeah. He writes novels. Action novels, right? Very popular. He must have written over 30, 40, I don't know, tons of novels. A very prolific author. And you can see all the books from over the years of his literary career. And it's fascinating. You see just looking at the outer cover of them. You know why? Because at the beginning, nobody knew who he was. So you had the title, a very exciting title, like I forget the names of the books, in very large print and with lots of color and very interesting graphics. And his name in the bottom, it said by Tom Clancy. Nobody knew who he was. So the name was very small. And next book and the next book, next book. Finally, the latest books in this collection, all over the front cover, big letters, Tom Clancy. And tiny letters at the bottom, it says this is the name of the book. It's not important what the name of the book is. The important is we know that, the author is amazing. Same thing. What's so special about the Tanakh? You can't compete with the author, right? It's the book of Hashem. So, of course, you're going to answer me, what's the best book of Torah? What's the best Jewish book in the world? Of course you're going to answer the Tanakh. But beyond that, it's hard to read sometimes. You have to study it. There's so many books that explain it, that expand upon it, that there's a library filled with all these books. So we call them Torah books. What are they for? They're for you to read. Do you have a favorite one? Do you have any book that you've ever read other than the Tanakh? I mean, you've read Kohelet, I'm sure, but it's great. It's amazing. Not everybody's read Kohelet. That's a good place to start. I always encourage you to go back to the basics. But beyond that, sometimes it's hard to connect to an ancient book from thousands of years ago. So you have these modern books, maybe in a language that you understand. Maybe it was written.
Maybe we don't have it in our library.
Maybe you don't have it in your library.
I don't remember the name of it, but it tells about there's this guy who grew up in an Orthodox yeshivish family.
Yeah.
And he became a rabbi, so he needed to find a congregation. And so he founded a congregation in Atlanta. It wasn't a very Jewish place yet. It had conservative or Reform Jews only at the time. And he decided to take it upon himself to work there. And he details like the early years and the interactions he had with the community and how the community changed into becoming a Shomer Shabbat community.
Yeah. Rabbi Feldman, maybe.
Yeah.
Amazing. I read that book. It's a great book. I forget the name of the book, too.
His granddaughter married my uncle. That's how I know all of the books.
Oh, very cool. Very cool. Very powerful. Great book. Yeah. Okay. Is that another book? Yes.
Did you ever heard about the book The Choice?
The Choice. I buy...
Written by Edith Eger.
Oh, no, I don't think I read that one.
She is a survivor of the Holocaust. She had a really bad life, but she turned it on.
Wow. Is it in English?
Yes.
Yeah.
And she's telling about whatever happens in your life, you always have a choice. Also about your believing. How you believe, the way you do it, when you do it, where you do it, never give up.
Amazing. Motivational.
Wow.
Wow. Great. Okay. Anybody else have a book that they like?
Book Thief.
Say again?
Book Thief.
Book Thief. What's that?
It's like a story from the World War II, and they are burning like Jewish books, and there's like a girl who's
The
still
Book Thief. Yes. There's a movie they made out of it.
Yeah.
I think they made a
I
movie.
also read the book. It's
You read the
very
book?
good, yeah.
Very cool. Yeah, I wouldn't quite consider that Torah. It's a story about Jewish themes, but it's not really expounding upon a Torah value, or it's not an interpretation of Judaism. It's definitely a Jewish story, but I wouldn't call it a Torah book, right? Anybody else?
I like the dialogue version of Misilat Yesharim.
Which one?
The dialogue version of Misilat Yesharim.
The dialogue version of Mesilat Yesharim, but it's only in Hebrew. There's no translation.
Yeah, there is.
You read Hebrew? There is a translation?
There is translation.
Oh, amazing.
I have that with me.
You have it with you? Oh, God, I didn't know that. I think now that you say it, I remember I must have seen it once. So it was a very fat volume, right? Because of the translation. Yeah. Wonderful. Yes, it's a good book. What else? Anybody, any other books of Torah that you guys learned?
Well, I've got one. I haven't started it yet. Probably I might start on Shavuot. It's collaborative work with Rabbi Menachem
Yes.
and a professor from Tel Aviv University. And Friedman has the lectures on YouTube.
Yes. Yes.
And this professor watched him.
And it's in Hebrew.
It's a translation of the book in English.
Oh, wow.
In English,
Okay.
It's they've released it in both languages.
Oh, there is in both languages. I've seen the advertising for it. I haven't seen
I
it.
didn't ask to be born.
I didn't ask to be born. Nice.
In English.
Okay. All right. Yeah, I would consider that Torah, because Rabbi Friedman is teaching his Torah insights about Judaism, from the sources, and it's teaching how to approach life and Jewish philosophy. So that looks promising. Yeah. So, yeah, you gotta work on your Jewish bookshelf.
Have you heard about when a Jew prays?
When a Jew prays, I don't recall that. No.
It's a very fascinating book. I read all of it, and it has like a story from Adam up to the modern Jewish and how they pray.
Amazing.
Stories of prayers.
Who wrote it?
I'm not familiar with the author, but they have it in the Philippines and in.
Oh, interesting. Okay. Yeah, book about prayer. It qualifies as a Torah book. Very good. So, the best book to learn on Shavuot night, we saw two approaches, right? We said some people say there's actual regimen. Tikkun Leil Shavuot, it's called, where you read a little bit of each book of the Tanakh, and then a little bit of the Zohar. There's different. There's a book. And so, that's what?
I saw it yesterday.
You saw it yesterday. Very good, right? So they sell it, and you could sometimes they have it in shul. But that's one approach. The other approach is you learn whatever your heart desires. Whatever's going to keep you awake is my approach. Right? I have a new book I'm reading by Rabbi Eliyahu ben Amozeg. He's a great rabbi from Italy. Died in 1900. And I just acquired the book. It's called Masoret V'hi Torah Sheba'al Peh. And right now, this is the book I'm reading. Other than, of course, we study Mishnah and Gemara every day, and we have the regular. Of course, we have to study Tanakh and all the classics. But sometimes you make it personal by doing your own personal study.
Article put out a very good volume called Sheish Mitzvot Talmidot.
Oh, I didn't see that. I'd love to see it. It looks great. Sounds great, yeah.
Like instead of just giving you a basic overview, it also gives interspersed stories regarding how to put into practice these mitzvahs about like Chazanish and Chatzai.
Stories are always good. You guys all met Pinchas, right? You guys know Pinchas? Pinchas, say hello to Shmuel and to Eov Yosef. And to Yosef, you met Yosef, you know Yosef, yeah. Benjamin, you know, Stephen, Israel, Ravid, Pinchas, Ravid, sitting right next to each other. Okay,
I've
great.
never seen this guy before. Are you new to the yeshiva?
Okay, what's the highlight? Halachically, we said yesterday that Sukkot has special mitzvot. You sit in the sukkah, you shake a lulav. Rosh Hashanah is a special mitzvah. Blowing of the shofar. Pesach, of course, you eat the matzah. Tell the story. What do you do on Shavuot? Is there any mitzvah to do? There is none, really, right? To eat cheesecake? It's a later custom. It doesn't appear in the Talmud, right?
Yes.
So what is perhaps the strongest performance?
To be awake.
Halachic performance, to be awake at the later custom also comes as, it's mentioned in the Zohar. The Rizal made a big deal of it, but it's only a couple hundred years old, this staying up all night. It doesn't appear.
It's the carbon musaf that translates into our
Close. When we recite the special korban that is brought on Shavuot, close, but I would say no cigar.
To hear the Ten Commandments.
There you go. We read from the Torah. On the day we receive from the Torah, we actually read from the Torah scroll the story of the Ten Commandments, how they were given over, revealed to us. So let's take a look at that on page 235. Again, this is not a separate mitzvah from the holiday. Shavuot doesn't really have its own unique mitzvah, but we emphasize, of course, the receiving of the Torah, and rabbinically, the way we do that, the greatest expression for in the biblical obligations, in the rabbinic obligations, are the reading of the Ten Commandments. Our sages ordained. Do you see that page 235? Okay, Pinchas, what'd you read for us?
Our sages ordained that the Torah reading on Shavuot be about the revelation at Har Sinai and the giving of the Ten Commandments. The Haftorah is from the beginning of Yechezkel, where the heavenly chariot is described.
Why? Stop there for a second. Have you ever read Yechezkel chapter 1?
A while back. Been a while.
Probably a year ago. Yechezkel chapter 1. Did anybody remember what it's like?
It's like wheel got into the wheel, and there's like a beings on the wheel.
There's wheels and beings.
Yeah, it's like a chariot.
It's like a chariot,
There's like
right?
feet that go straight, like.
It's wild. We don't understand really what's going on until today. There's some creatures that have like 6 wings. 6-winged creatures right there in Yechezkel. Basically, it's known as Ma'aseh Merkava. It's called the vision of the chariot. And it's Yechezkel's inaugural prophecy, and it's his description of the spiritual world that he sees, the vision, the spiritual vision of angels of the various sights. And why do we read that on Shavuot?
Shavuot is about the opening of the heavens and Hashem coming down to our level, and like we have the Midrash about like the whole nation died and came back to life after hearing the voice of Hashem.
In short, this revelation at Sinai for the entire Jewish people is what we're celebrating, and so we have perhaps the most detailed description in some kind of a mystical vision of a revelation to a private prophet, Yechezkel. So we read the revelation of Yechezkel after reading the revelation of Sinai. We know that the Haftarah is a rabbinic institution, that we have to read something from the prophets. Which prophet? We chose Yechezkel. Okay, we usually choose the later prophets, but there's some that are earlier prophets. Anyways, Yechezkel, that's the Torah reading. And we read the Haftarah from Yechezkel. Go ahead.
As on all festivals, there are 5 aliyot.
Stop for a second. Ravid, how many aliyot to the Torah were there this morning? This morning. It's 9 o'clock. Hasn't been that long this morning. It's hard to remember. Shmuel, am I a good teacher? Am I a good teacher? Stephen, how many aliyot in the Torah were there this morning?
It's supposed to be Thursday, right? Monday, Thursday.
It's a trick question, it's Wednesday.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Over 0.
The answer is 0.
Oh, yes.
There's no Torah reading this morning.
Yes.
Just making sure we're all had our coffee and we're all awake. Exactly. That's the point. It is confusing. It's like a Thursday because tomorrow there's no class. It's like an Erev Shabbat. It's Erev Yom Tov, a day early. But today is Wednesday. There's no Torah reading on Wednesdays. So the correct answer to my question was 0. There's no aliyot to the Torah this morning. Okay. Ravid, how many aliyot will there be on Thursday, tomorrow?
7.
Tomorrow, Thursday. Tomorrow, Thursday.
Tomorrow? No.
Tomorrow's Thursday. No, today it was none.
Yes.
But tomorrow, Thursday. Thursday, every Monday and Thursday, we read from the Torah. How many people are called to the Torah on Mondays and Thursdays?
3.
3. That's the correct answer. 3. Now, who remembers on Sunday? Go back a few days. Today's Wednesday. Not Tuesday, not Monday, but Sunday. How many people were called to the Torah on Sunday?
4. 5.
Yov? 4. Why 4? Rosh Chodesh. We read 4. 4 people are called to the Torah on Rosh Chodesh. 3, 4. Okay. Now, on this coming Friday, how many aliyot are we going to have? 5, because it's Yom Tov. On Yom Tov, we have 5 readers are called to the Torah. How about not this Friday, but this coming Saturday?
7.
On Shabbat, we're going to have 7 aliyot. For every type of day, there is a different number of readers of the Torah. The only one that we skipped was right, we had 3, we had 4, we had 5, and we had 7. 6. When do we read 6? When do we call 6 people to the Torah? Only once a year.
Yom Kippur?
Yes. Correct. Yom Kippur. Fascinating, huh? Jewish trivia. You could add this to the chart if you want. I mean, all the festivals are going to be 5, 5, 5, 5, 5, 5, except for Yom Kippur, which is 6. Rosh Chodesh is not on your chart, so there's nowhere to write it in that it's 4. And the daily Torah readings, the weekly Torah readings on Mondays and Thursdays is 3. It's not really designed for this, but if you want to add in, the Yom Kippur has 6 Torah readings, and all the other festivals have 5. Right? So Pesach, Shavuot, Sukkot, all have 5. Chanukah, we read from the Torah every day, only 3. Purim, 3. No other days do we have. And all the fast days, we read from the Torah, 3. Right? Only Rosh Chodesh gets 4, and the holidays, the biblical festivals get 5.
Pesach,
5.
Pesach, Shavuot, and
Sukkot. Pesach, Shavuot, and Sukkot. Those are three.
and 6 on Yom Kippur.
6 in Yom Kippur. Rosh Hashanah is also 5.
Rosh Chodesh 4.
Rosh Chodesh 4. Yep.
Yom Kippur 6, Purim 3,
Mhm.
Rosh Chodesh
4. Rosh Chodesh 4.
Lag BaOmer?
Lag BaOmer, no Torah reading. It's not a biblical festival. It's not a rabbinic festival.
Festival 5.
It's just a little commemoration. We don't read the Torah on Tu B'Shvat either. We have to go out and plant the trees, right?
So,
No time.
Festival
Chanukah and Purim is 3, like
Festival 6.
Why we don't mention the 3 on Shabbat when we...
Shabbat afternoon, also 3. Correct. Shabbat afternoon, also 3. Very good. Anyways, the festival of Shavuot is coming up. How many people are called to the Torah? 5. Pinchas is right that on all of those festivals and Shabbat,
afternoon, 4.
3.
there is, whenever the sages instituted that we read the Haftarah, section from the Nevi'im, we add an Aliyah as well. So Shabbat is 7 plus 1, and then the Haftarah. On the festivals, it's going to be 5 plus 1, and then the Haftarah. Because we always, whenever we have a Haftarah, we add a Torah reading as well. The person who reads the Haftarah has to be called to the Torah first.
We do the same one Menachem on Shabbos, right? Yeah.
No, there's no maftir there. It's just a Haftarah without. We just call the last one, yeah. It's an exception.
The plus 1 is the after.
No.
No, it's
Plus an additional aliyah from the Torah. Sometimes we repeat something we read already. Sometimes we have a different one. And then the Haftarah. But it's the same person that gets called to read the Haftarah. He also gets called to read a little bit from the Torah. So it's 7 plus 1 every Shabbat. So you could call it 8 aliyot. But really it's officially supposed to be 7. And then the 8th one is just because the Haftarah reader has to get an aliyah. Right? And same thing on the festivals. 5 plus 1 plus Haftarah.
Shabbat is 3, no?
Shabbat afternoon is 3, but in the morning it's 7. Yeah, in some Reform congregations, the Torah reading every Shabbat is just too long, so they cut it down. And yeah, they don't have 7 aliyot. Or maybe they do, but maybe they don't. They do all sorts of things. I don't know what they do over there. But Orthodox world, every Shabbat morning, 7 aliyot plus 1 and Haftarah.
And Monday and Thursday, that's the morning? Yeah.
Monday, Thursday morning, yeah. We got to get you connected to a synagogue. Put this theory into practice. Of course, if you can make it here at the Machon Meir, that's ideal. We have 3 prayers a day here with a minyan. We try to keep the laws. We make sure that we follow these rules. We have the right amount of aliyot. And if you smile and you're nice enough, maybe you'll be called to the Torah one day. We're very strict here. There's one condition: you have to be Jewish. So you have to wait till you finish the conversion. But other than that, if you smile, they'll give you an aliyah. We try to be welcoming of everybody, and we welcome people in the process as well. Just some places you can give some other honorariums to converts, but they don't here. They're very careful. But maybe they let you open the Torah, open the Ark. Maybe Psicha they'll give to you. I'm not sure what the practice is here. Some places they'll allow somebody who's in a conversion process to do Hagba, to lift up the Torah. But you do see that? Have you ever done it?
When they allow.
They allow it. Ah, okay.
New visitor.
Yeah, the question if he's not Jewish, I'm saying. A new visitor. Yeah, Hagba. Yeah, you've seen that people that are still converted. Yeah. Good. I think that's makes sense. But I don't think they do it here so much. In Machon. Until you're Jewish, you don't get to do Hagba. Okay. Anyways, back to Shavuot. The morning comes, we read the Torah, we read the Haftarah, all festivals, there's 5 aliyot. Continue reading Pinchas, page 235, 5 lines from the bottom. The original rule
was to take out only 1 Torah scroll from the Ark, and the Machtir was one of the 5 people called out to read from it. However, the Ma'onim record the custom of taking out 2 Torah scrolls. 5 people read from the first, as described in the Mishnah, and then Machtir is read from the second. The maftir is from the Bifar, which describes the festival offerings.
So you see here the maftir, that extra 5 plus 1. The plus 1, we read a different Torah scroll. We read from a different place in the scroll, and it's very hard to, just find the page quickly when you have to be rolling. So we just take out 2 Sifrei Torah. Second Torah is not from, what do we read from the first Torah? What do we read about in the first Torah? The Ten Commandments, which comes from which book? The book of Shemot. Shemot chapter 19. We studied it a little bit together. At the beginning, and the introduction anyways, right? The second Torah scroll we read about, not about the giving of the Torah, but we read about the sacrifice. The sacrifice which was brought on Shavuot. That comes from the book of Bamidbar. Right? Bereshit Shmot, Vayikra Bamidbar. You'd have to scroll through all of the book of Vayikra and get through almost all of the book of Bamidbar towards the end of it to find the Torah reading for the maftir. So we take out 2 scrolls. One for the 5 readers, and then the second scroll for the maftir. Keep going.
According to the Gemara, the rationale behind this is that Hashem said, "For when the temple no longer exists, I established the sacrificial order." Whenever,
Go ahead.
Do you want me to read the brackets?
Please.
Okay. When Hashem said, "For when the temple no longer exists, I established the text concerning the sacrificial order." Whenever the Jews read them, I consider it as if they offered the sacrifices and forgive all their sins.
So we read about the sacrifices instead of actually offering them in the temple. So that's significant too. Go ahead.
Our sages tell us that the Torah reading on Shavuot, describing Matan Torah, is especially important. Hashem said to the Jews, "My children, read this portion every year, and I will consider it as if you are standing before Sinai and receiving the Torah." On account of this, the custom on Shavuot is to read the Ten Commandments with a festive upper cantillation. When reading with the usual...
Ta'am Elyon. I asked you to read the... But it's okay. You asked about... whatever. Yeah, okay. Anyways. What's going on? What are the cantillation notes? We spoke about it not long ago, right? I showed you that in most editions of the Torah, there's not only the commas and periods, but there's also vowelization, nikud. But over and above the vowels, which you're used to, even in modern Hebrew, there's all these notations, which are, I explain them as musical notes. Sometimes they're called the trop. Cantillation marks, and teaches you how to punctuate the sentence and how to sing it. Where stop the phrase, what's the midpoint of the pasuk, where's the end of the pasuk. All that is explained to us through the Masoretes, who came up with this notation system. And so they reflect an ancient tradition of how to read the Torah and how to sing the Torah and how to read it with expression, with how to pronounce the Torah. So we have a standard tune. Each community is a little different, influenced by the music of the country that they lived in for hundreds of years. There's an Ashkenazi tune, and there's a Sephardi tune, and there's a Yerushalmi tune, and there's a Yemenite tune. The tunes are different, but they all are following the same notes. And the notes are what's significant, that you punctuate. Because of the notes, you're punctuating the words and you're pronouncing the words in the same way. So there is a fascinating feature of this tradition, and that is that when it comes to the Ten Commandments, there's two sets of notes. Not 2 ways to sing them. There's 2 sets of notes. The standard set of notes, which shows you, where the sentence stops and where the comma is, and how to punctuate the sentence and how to read the words. But then there's like a more festive punctuation. How can punctuation change? The sentence is a sentence. So one explanation is as he's going to say, I think that this festive sort of punctuation, these cantillation notes, it's called the upper, because many of the notes are on top of the words instead of below the words. But it reflects that it might be trying to imagine what it was like when these 10 commandments were heard, when they were spoken, when they were transmitted to us orally. They were transmitted as a unit. Okay, we say 10 commandments, but you know that commandment number 1 is 5 psukim. Commandment number 6 is 2 words. So they're a varying length. And so where do you stop? Do you stop based on the exposition? You have all the 5 psukim. If you want to concentrate on this is number 1, you'd have all 5 as one run-on sentence to show you that it's one unit. And the second commandment, even though it might have a few sentences when you would punctuate it normally, if you want to emphasize that this was orally transmitted as number 2, so they created a second system of notes for these Aseret HaDibrot, the 10 Commandments. And what do we do with this second system of notes? Tradition is, we use them only on Shavuot. Only on Shavuot. That's one tradition.
Another tradition that
yeah.
anytime you read Aseret HaDibrot.
Right. Some people say whenever you read it publicly. Well, we're always reading it publicly. That's the only time we use the cantillation notes, is when we read it publicly. So there's different customs about that. But the one that makes the most sense to me is when we're reading the 10 Commandments now, it's not part of the regular Parsha of the week. It's because it's Shavuot. It's because it's festive. Because we're commemorating the original revelation at Sinai. And so we use those special, for sure, everybody agrees that on Shavuot, we use those special notes, special cantillation notes. Okay, why don't you read it for us, Pinchas? When reading,
the usual cantillation, one pauses at the end of each verse. When reading with the festive cantillation, one pauses at the end of each commandment. For example, the commandment to remember the Shabbat day, extends over 4 verses, but it is read as one long verse with the festive cantillation. Likewise, there is a single verse that contains 4 commandments. Do not murder, do not commit adultery, do not steal, and do not bear false witnesses. Normally, they are read as one verse, but in the festive cantillation, they are read as if they are 4 separate verses. This different division of verses affects the cantillation of so many words that a slightly different tune was established for reading according to this division. Is that Biur Halacha?
it is.
Biur Halacha 494 is 3. All agree that on Shavuot, the Aseret HaDibrot are read with the Ta'am Elyon. Although there used to be various customs as to how to read them during the year, the normal cycle of Torah readings, nowadays in all public Torah readings, it is standard to read the 10 Commandments with the festive cantillation.
I'm not sure it's standard everywhere. I practiced differently a couple of years ago. They asked me to read, and I read it was not Shavuot, and I read the regular one. But perhaps that's the more common custom. Okay, go ahead.
Many stand during the reading of the Aseret HaDibrot as a remembrance of the awesome and magnificent event it describes. Listening to a public reading of the 10 Commandments is considered to be greeting the divine presence. The custom of standing is first mentioned in the time of the Rishonim about 800 years ago, but has become widespread only in the last 200 years or so. All Ashkenazim and some Spartan follow this custom. Some object to it because the sages of the Gemara chose not to require the daily recitation of the 10 Commandments together with the Shema. They felt that this way, people would be less likely to be led astray by the heretical claims that it is sufficient to keep the 10 Commandments alone and disregard the rest of the mitzvot. For the same reason, some object to standing for the 10 Commandments. Nevertheless, most poskim are not concerned about this. After all, the people stood at Sinai. They feel that the sages were concerned only that the daily recitation of the 10 Commandments might lead people astray. Additionally, nowadays, it is unusual to find heretics who argue that the 10 Commandments are the only obligatory mitzvah.
Can you pass me a siddur, a blue siddur, and pass everyone out a blue siddur. And please open up to page 265. Boker Tov.
I didn't hear my
Didn't hear your alarm. Oh no.
I heard the first one, but then I was like, I can't miss more. Then the other one didn't hear.
Page 270. Actually, 270 is what I'd like you to see. Any more copies of the blue siddur? No, that's it? No more? I'll have to share. Page 270. It's called Readings After the Service. Some say the following daily after morning prayers. 6 remembrances. 270. Everybody got it? What do we remember? The Exodus from Egypt. So we recite the pasuk from Deuteronomy, that you may remember the day you left the land of Egypt all the days of your life. The second one is interesting. Another thing that we're supposed to remember, and so we do it every day, it's the revelation at Sinai. What does it say? According to the Ramban, Nachmanides. Yes, please, 1 second. According to Nachmanides, this is a mitzvah from the Torah, that we must remember this revelation at Sinai. Foundational event for the Jewish people. Just like the Exodus was, so too was the Sinaitic event. And it's explicitly here, it sounds like a simple reading. The Rambam doesn't count it, but the Ramban says, you forgot this one. Got to be careful. Okay, the Seder. It's nice to have you. Next. Okay, so Yosef, read Deuteronomy 4. Only be careful.
Only be careful and watch yourself very closely, lest you forget the things your eyes have seen, or let them sleep on your heart all the days of your life. You shall make them known to your children and your children's children, the day you stood before Hashem early at Horeb, when Hashem said to me, assemble the people before me, and I will let them hear my words, so that they may learn to be in awe of me as long as they live on earth. And they will teach them to their children.
So why do you have to remember the revelation?
So don't forget.
Not to forget, and
Teach your children.
to teach your children, right? And your children's children, right? We got to pass on the tradition. And this revelation was quite an event. When do we commemorate this revelation? Shavuot. Revelation. Shavuot. Right? Okay, so how do we do that? We do that in the reading of the Torah. We read from the Torah. What section do we choose to read? Obviously, the one that describes the revelation. Now, there used to be a custom. Most Sidurim do not have this, because they took it out in the period of the Gaonic times. There used to be that people would read the 10 Commandments every day. Very special section of the Torah. That's the revelation at Sinai. And then they took it out. They took it out maybe as a polemic against Christianity, who limited, of course, the 613 mitzvot to much less. Sorry?
Every day they read from the scroll?
No, just from a siddur, or it was in the siddur. Now it's rare. One of the few siddurim I found, that current siddurim that have the 10 Commandments, is this one. Turn the page. One page. What do they have here? The 10 Commandments. Look at that. How about that from Exodus 20? Wow, this is a little bit of a unique feature of this particular siddur. It's an ancient custom, but it's really fallen out of practice. Most people do not recite, and I purposely do not recite, lest people get the wrong idea that only these 10 Commandments are the Jewish ritual, and not more than that. We have 613. But this siddur, for some reason, they like the custom. They put it back in. I don't think there's any prohibition. It's always a good thing. And, of course, on Shavuot, we read from the Torah, this section, Exodus 20. I'd say, like Rabbi Melamed says, the custom in most synagogues is to stand. Everybody stand. Page 272. Read the first one for us.
In English?
Yeah.
I am the Lord your God who
Come on.
I am,
Give it to me. Give it to me.
I am the Lord.
Give it to me.
I am.
No, give me a dramatic reading. You're reading the Ten
I
Commandments.
am the Lord your God who brought you out of the land of Egypt, from the slave house.
Whew. Stop there. I have to sit down. Just heard the word of God. No, we stand for the whole thing. Okay, next. Who's going to read the next one? Yosef.
Have no other deities beside
Hang
me.
on. Is that your best God voice? Give me your best God voice here.
Sure. Have no other deities beside me.
Oh, good. Wow. It sounds like a little bit angry. Are you an angry God?
No, I'm just...
It's very hard to have the voice of God. Impossible, of course, right? It's impossible.
You don't want to mock him also.
Of course not. But I'm trying to teach you that when we read the Torah every week, so it's part of Torah reading, public Torah reading. Shavuot, we're not just reading part of the scroll of the 54 Parshiot. We're trying to commemorate the revelation at Sinai. And so we don't read it in a booming voice or in a whisper, but we do change the tune, make it festive. In most places we stand, just like it says that the Jewish people stood under Sinai, at the foot of Sinai. We talked about it the other day. They stood under Sinai. So we stand, and so you can read in any voice you like. Go ahead, read number 2.
Have no other deities beside me. Do not make a sculptured image for yourself, or any likeness of what is in the heavens above, on the earth below, or in the water underneath, under the earth. Do not bow down to them or worship them, for I am Hashem Eli, zealously visiting the guilt of the parents on the children to the 3rd and 4th generation, if they are also rejected, but showing kindness to thousands of generations of those who love me and keep my commandments.
Wow. Okay. Eof.
Do not take the name of the Lord your God in vain. The Lord will not leave unpunished one who utters his name in vain.
Do you know that's one of the 10 Commandments? Not to say God's name in vain. Shmuel.
Remember the Sabbath and keep it holy. 6 days you shall labor and do all your work. The 7th day is Shabbat of the Hashem your Lord, of the Lord Hashem. And if you shall not do any work, you, your son or daughter, your male or female slaves, your captive, or the stranger within your gates. For in 6 days the Lord made the heaven and earth, and the sea, and all that is in them. And he rested on the 7th day. Therefore the Lord blessed the Shabbat day and made it holy.
Okay, that's number 4. Number 5, Ravid.
I will try.
Great.
Honor your father and your mother, so that you may live long in the land of the Lord your God is giving you.
Beautiful. Wonderful. 1 through 5, they say, is a little different than 6 through 10. You can see already the length is different. But what's the theme of the first 5 versus the theme of the second 5?
Positive.
There's positive. There's some negative there too, right? 2 and 3 are negative. I wouldn't say that.
Like,
The first 5 is
between man and God. Ben Adam la Makom, we talked about it once, and Ben Adam la Chavero. The last 5 are all interpersonal commandments, except one. The thesis works, Eov. What about number 5? Right? It's honor your father and mother. They're humans. It's not between you and God. So it's a stretch. Some people explain, well, your father and mother remind you of God. because they're the source of where you came from, and ultimately God is their source. So it can be considered to be also between man and God. In any case, Israel, number 6, read for us. Stephen.
Do not commit adultery.
Benjamin, number 8.
Do not steal.
I like that. It sounds like a question mark. It's a rhetorical question. Do not steal? Well done. Go ahead one more time.
Do not testify as a false witness against your neighbor.
Do not be envious of your neighbor's house. Do not be envious of your neighbor's wife, his male or female slave, his ox, his ass, or anything else that is your neighbor's. Now we can sit down. All right. Amazing. So this is getting ready for Shavuot. The more you study it ahead of time, you can appreciate it. But the custom is, in some synagogues, they say, they wait for everybody to get up before they start the Ten Commandments. Some they don't. It's up to you. Some stand, some don't. It's quite many different customs. What some people do, I think it's suggested, is that you stand up not right at the beginning of the Ten Commandments for the word Anuchi, Hashem Elokecha, but you start from the beginning of the Aliyah. I think it's the 4th Aliyah of the 5, 4th out of the 5. So you stand from the Baruch Hu, from the beginning, from the reader, who from the person who says the blessings in the Torah. And you stand up for the entire thing, so you're not only standing for this one section, you stand for the entire larger section, so can avoid whatever theological problem might be. Okay, the Ten Commandments. Do you know that there's an organization called Chabad? You might have heard of them before. You see, they gave out these flags the other day. They got all the school kids together and they had a parade. That was on Lag BaOmer. They come up with all sorts of educational activities. It's really lovely. One of the things they decided to do, maybe, I don't know how many years ago, but it's getting more and more popular. It's amazing that on Shavuot, they gather all the kids in the afternoon, usually, and they read the Ten Commandments, just like we did now. And they give them a popsicle, and they sing some songs, and it's a wonderful educational activity. Sometimes they might even bring them to the shul and read from the Sefer Torah. Reading the Ten Commandments, perhaps the major event of the Shavuot. So why not do it in more creative ways and make sure the kids are involved? And sometimes, if you're up all night, what time is it when we read from the Torah? After Shacharit, right? The Shacharit, it's 5 a.m. We're reading from the Torah by 6 a.m. And you're like falling asleep because you've been up all night. So 6 a.m. you're reading from the Torah. You got the rest of the days. Most people are not up at 6 a.m. The kids are not up. Women are not up. Most of the men are not up. So the main event of the day sometimes gets lost in the shuffle of this unique scheduling. So it's important to realize that this is the main event of the day, the commemoration of the Ten Commandments when we read from the Torah. Okay, one more custom that we haven't spoken about, and we only have a few minutes, and that is Megillat Ruth. Actually, 2. There's also decorating the synagogue, but if we have time, we'll get to that as well. Let's take a look on page 237. Put away the Sidurim. And look at page 237, Megillat Ruth. Shmuel, why don't you read for us, please?
Megillat Ruth, it's customary to read the book of Ruth on Shavuot. According to the Midrash, this is to teach you that the Torah is acquired only through poverty and suffering. The Torah asked of God, Master of the universe, throw my lot in with the poor, for if the wealthy study me, they will become arrogant, while poor people who study me are aware that they are lowly and hungry. Yelchut Shimoni Ruth 5 and 6. In this Megillah, we see the fulfillment of the Mishnaic proclamation Anyone who keeps the Torah while poor will eventually keep it while rich, while anyone who ignores the Torah while rich will ultimately ignore it while poor. Prepare Ruth 4:9. Ruth lived long enough to see her descendants David and Shlomo sitting on the throne.
Okay, this is assuming you know the story of Ruth a little bit, and it describes how at first she was married to one of the leaders of Israel, and then he died, and she was poor, and she comes to be a poor beggar in the fields of Beit Lechem. Ultimately, it's a rags to riches, because she finds the guy who marries her, takes care of her. Ultimately, she becomes the great-great-grandmother of King David. So that's the comparison here to. But a big part of the story is how Ruth was poor. She was collecting the grain in the field like the poor people did in those days. And so it's to remind us of the state of poverty, and we have to acquire Torah even if it's difficult. That's why we test you here, sending you to my class. Have some suffering, have some affliction, have some... I torture you a little bit, just to make sure.
Did you torture them?
Yes, you missed it. You missed it, Dimitri, but next time we'll get you too. Made everybody stand up and read and make all funny voices.
Wow, that sounds like fun.
Okay, you're begging for punishment. Okay, no problem. A second reason, more common reason. Go ahead, Shmuel.
Sorry, one second.
Sure. Okay, no problem. You read then. Second reason.
The second reason for reading this Megillah on Shavuot is that Israel's acceptance of the Torah at Sinai was in effect their conversion to Judaism. Ruth's conversion, as portrayed in the Megillah, can be seen as a continuation of that event of the Dracham. The third reason is that it was on Shavuot that King David died. The book of Ruth deals with his lineage, as we read at its end in Yishai Begot David, K. Yosef 494:11. The fourth reason is that the scroll contains neither laws about purity and impurity, nor laws about what is permitted and prohibited. Why then was it written? To teach how great the Lord is who performed in the act of kindness. Ruth Rabbi 2:14. Encouraging kindness is the primary purpose of Torah, as we read. The Torah begins with the act of kindness and ends with the act of kindness. Sota 48:8. This is also expressed by Rabbi Akiva's declaration, "Love your fellow as yourself," is a vital principle of Torah. Sifra Kedushin.
Okay, so how many reasons are there for reading Ruth on Shavuot?
5, 6.
I think we had 4, right? 4. There are 4 reasons, right? 4 reasons for reading Ruth on Shavuot. How many Megillot are there? How many scrolls are there? There's 24 books in the Bible, right? 5 Chamushim, and then there's 8, I think, Nevi'im, Rishoni, Nevi'im, and then there's, how many are left? Ketuvim? It's on the board over there.
The five.
See, Torah, Nevi'im, Ketuvim. Over there, all there in one, right?
That's
5 Megillot.
Right, so part of the Ketuvim is a group called the 5 Megillot. 5 Megillas, 5 scrolls, is part of the Ketuvim. And these scrolls are read publicly, each one on a different festival. When is the scroll of Esther read, Israel? When do we read the scroll of Esther? On which festival during the year?
Esther.
Yeah.
Esther for the Purim.
Purim. Very good. When do we read the scroll of Lamentations, it's called. Eicha.
Eicha on Tisha B'Av.
Tisha B'Av, on the fast day, when we commemorating the destruction. Good. Who can tell me what scroll we read on Pesach?
Exodus from Egypt.
Yes, that's not a scroll though. That's part of the 5 books of Moses. We're talking about those 5 scrolls. The list is on the board over there. You can see that, but they are. Shir HaShirim is the correct answer. Shir HaShirim, the Song of Songs, is one of those scrolls which is read on Pesach.
Because they crossed the sea and it's happy.
Well, it's a love. God took us out of Egypt with love, and so it's a love story. And what about on Sukkot? What do we read on Sukkot? Kohelet, Ecclesiastes, which is the last one, is Ruth. Ruth we read on Shavuot. Each of the festivals we have a scroll of Ruth. Why do we read it on Shavuot? What's the connection? To me, the strongest connection.
There's also Megillat Esther, no?
Esther, we said on Purim.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. To me, there's 2 strong connections. One is when you read the Megillah, it talks about the entire setting, the major events of Megillah. That Ruth speak about the harvest of the wheat. And this is the festival of the harvest of the wheat. So it happened during this time. That's one, but that's technical. The most compelling reason is what he had here is number 2, and that is on Shavuot we commemorate the giving of the Torah, which is when the entire Jewish people pseudo-converted. We accepted Torah upon ourselves, which is a story of conversion. And Ruth, of course, is a story of conversion. She was converted. She said, your people is my people, and your God is my God, which is the essential statement of converting, to join the religious component, to join the national component of the Jewish people. And so it's really a festival of conversion. And that's why we read the Ruth, who converted, we read that on Shavuot. For all 4 reasons. And maybe the 5th one that I added, that the setting is the period of the harvest. We learn many things from it. How important kindness is. She gets to where she is because of the kindness that she shows to her mother-in-law. She doesn't leave her alone. And Boaz shows kindness. Ruth shows kindness. Everybody there, the good guys. The good guys are kind. The bad guys, we won't mention what happens to them. Okay, so this is the custom. Yes, please.
Do we already have an answer why we don't mention the story of King David?
So right here, there is a tradition. He says here, at the end of the book of Ruth, it mentions that she was the ancestor of King David. But there also is a tradition that King David died and was born on this day, on the day of Shavuot.
And we also mention him in the Amidah, at the end.
Every day.
Yes.
Yeah, sure.
So why we don't give extra attention about that on Shavuot? Because it's very important.
So we do. I mean, there is a custom to recite all of the Tehillim every Shavuot. Tehillim are associated with King David, and so you'll see some people reciting all the Tehillim during that 1 24-hour period. And some people do that all night long instead of learning Torah. But it's not instead. It's sort of a form of learning Torah, but it's actually a form of prayer as well. In any case, King David is a central figure for Shavuot. That's correct. Rav Melamed seems to not make a central theme of that. I think we read all of chapter 13, and we didn't see any mention of the special event that focuses on King David, other than, he says here, the 3rd reason is that it was on Shavuot that King David died. And the book of Ruth deals with his lineage. So, if we read Ruth because King David died, so that's a reason we read Megillat Ruth. As you said, there is more commemorations. People focus on King David a little more. King David, of course, is known as the father of Mashiach, ben David, who we're hoping for, always. And maybe Shavuot, he'll come.
Amazing.
That's it. Okay, let's continue. There's different customs about most people don't have a proper scroll of root, like with parchment and those sticks. Most people just somebody reads it out of a chumash or out of a Tanakh, and there's a special tune for it. But there are some synagogues that are very careful. They have a specially written scroll, and if they do, they say a bracha before reading the Megillah and a Shechianu. But that's the Vilna Gaon's custom, but most shuls don't have that. And I mentioned to you the other day that some people do it in the middle of the regular services before the Torah reading, and some communities do it in the morning, even before they start praying. Some do it afterwards, in the afternoon when you've had a little nap, and you can actually listen to what's going on and not fall asleep in the middle. So when you read it is fine. And then I think by the way, Chabad, they don't read Megillot. Any of these Megillot, except for Eicha. They don't, and Esther, of course. But the other Megillot on Pesach, Shavuot, and Sukkot, they don't do that, at least publicly. They don't have a public reading of it. But every other community does, I think. Well, the last custom, which you should be aware of, decorating the synagogue. Page 238 at the bottom. Okay.
But the decoration is not only in the synagogue.
Where else?
There are so many people, they decorate also their own home.
Wow, lovely. Never heard of that custom, but it says on the, no, it's actually, he quotes it here on the bottom, page 239, as the Ramah says, that some people do that in their homes as well. But
it's beautiful.
If you like flowers, most people like flowers. It's actually better to do it at home than it is in the synagogue. Because in the synagogue, we have a prohibition of putting trees in the synagogue. It says explicitly in the Torah, you're not allowed to have a tree in your house of worship.
Because it's like worshiping trees.
Yeah, exactly. There were too many idol worshippers who actually bowed down to the trees. So some rabbis were against this custom of putting all this greenery decoration in the synagogue. So the home, you have no problem. But in the synagogue, it's actually quite common nonetheless. Some rabbis said, come on, nobody worships these trees. It's beautifying, it's giving us, why would we decorate on Shavuot? What's the point of this custom? So let's read about it inside. Stephen, you read for us, page 238. The bottom of 238.
Many decorate the synagogue with pretty, fragrant branches and plants in honor of the Torah that was given in Shavuot. Since Torah adds life, it is customary to decorate the synagogue with plants or branches which symbolize life.
Wait, does anybody know what the words are comparing Torah to the tree of life? Huh? Yeah, Chaim, yeah. And what's a tree? Eitz Chaim. Eitz Chaim hi. Sometimes we sing that in shul, right? We're giving back the Torah. It's a very famous verse. She is a tree of life. From Mishlei. Eitz Chaim hi. She is a tree of life. So the Torah is compared to a tree of life. So we put some trees in the synagogue. Some branches, it gives a signifying. We're celebrating the Torah. Go ahead, that's the first reason.
Is there a connection with the Sefirot?
Not that I know of. No, not that I know of. There is the Kabbalists speak about the Sefirot, as they call it. It's a tree of 10 Sefirot. But that's, I understand the question, but I haven't heard that. Go ahead. This custom also
reminds us that the time of giving the Torah, Mount Sinai was covered by plants to honor the Torah, the bush. Some used fragrant branches in order to increase joy and pleasure, to represent the exquisite spirituality of the Torah. With every statement that issues forth from God's mouth. The entire world filled with fragrance. Shabbat 88b.
Nice. Sometimes in the Beit Midrash, unfortunately, people open their mouths with words of Torah and it comes out a fragrance which they didn't brush their teeth in the morning. Right? It's the opposite. They have to be careful to be nice to each other and to take care of our oral hygiene. Use mouthwash or brush your teeth. But the opposite, it says, what a midrash. Every statement, the entire world was filled with fragrance. So smell is used. We have the branches of the beautiful site and also smell. Go ahead.
Some use tree branches because God passes judgment on fruit tree on Shavuot.
Remember we mentioned that? It's the beginning of the summer, of the harvest of the fruit from the trees, Bikurim, the beginning of the Bikurim time. And so there's also an element of judgment that maybe something will happen to the crop before it ripens. Maybe, there's some worm will come and attack it and I won't get any of all my crop. So there's an element of judgment on Shavuot for the trees. Go ahead.
By seeing branches in the synagogue, people will remember to pray for the tree. However, branches from the fruit tree should not be used, as they should not be broken off without a good reason.
Okay.
This custom began in Germany around 600 years ago. Maharil Rama 4943. From there, it spread to most Jewish community, both Ashkenazi and Sephardi. The Vilna Gaon opposed the custom because he felt it was similar to Gentile practices. Christians decorate their home with branches before their holiday, Pentecost, and the Torah commands us not to imitate their practices. Thus we read, "Nor shall you follow their laws." Vayikra 18:3. Some rule in accordance with the Vilna Gaon. Aye Adam 131 verse 13.
You might have heard that some people actually bring some tree into their home on some Christian, the Christmas tree, right? So the concept of having a tree for a festival, it was used by Christianity. So you can understand people protesting against this. And this custom, it appears only 600 years ago. It's not from the Talmud, 1600 years ago. So it's a later custom, but nevertheless, go ahead. Most poskim maintain.
Nevertheless, most poskim maintain that there is no problem with the custom. The prohibition of following the Gentile applies only when either the custom is immodest in some way, or it is meaningless and pointless, and is done only to imitate non-Jewish practice, which can be assumed to be based on false belief. In contrast, in this case, there are good reasons for the custom, and there is no concern that it looked like following non-Jewish ways. Accordingly, most Jewish communities do decorate the synagogue with pretty, fragrant branches and plants. Some decorate their home as well with branches and flowers. Since the branches are for the decoration, they are not set. However, if Shavuot is on Sunday, the branches should not be set out on Shabbat. Doing so would be preparing on Shabbat for Yom Tov, which is prohibited.
Right, so one principle that he discussed here is called Chukot Hagoyim. That's the do not follow their laws, right? It's a general principle which we're not supposed to imitate the practices of the heathens. And this is a very good question about a lot of practices. Well, Christians have Christmas trees, so we can't have trees. Okay, but the Christians they wear button-down shirts. So maybe we can't wear button-down shirts. What I'm wearing and what you're wearing. Right? Don't the Christians wear kippah? So how can we wear a kippah? It's a Christian practice. Chukot hagoyim. It's the do not follow their laws. It's a violation of the Torah.
It's not polytheistic. It's not
So that's what you have to use some sense, and the sages struggle with this. Whenever you do something which a lot of the Christians or non-Jews are doing, we start to feel uncomfortable because we're Jews. We can't do the same things that non-Jews do. But there has to be some guiding principle because they also breathe. So you can't breathe because they breathe. So no, but it's a practice which is part of their religion. Well, they sing, so we're not going to be allowed to sing. So the sages give definitions. It's a very big discussion, which he tries to condense into two basic principles. He says the prohibition of following the Gentiles applies only when either the custom is immodest in some way, if there's a custom that they do which has some kind of sexual immodesty involved, which of course the ancient pagans, they had all sorts of dances of women and associated with their cult, or it is meaningless and pointless. Okay, it's like crossing yourself, for example, like that. Okay, so we don't do that because that's clearly they mean it to signify their God. But if there's a reason for there's a good reason why you would want to do a certain practice, and there's nothing to do with licentiousness, nothing to do with immorality, there's nothing to do with a foreign religion. For example, we discussed it a month ago. We had the sirens. The state of Israel decided that this is one of the practices we do on the day we commemorate the fallen soldiers, and the day we commemorate the Holocaust. That there's a siren everywhere, every city, all around Israel, for 1 minute or 2 minutes. One day it's at night as well. One day, I think it's only in the morning. It's only in the morning. And everybody... Was it night as well?
Yom HaZikaron is the night.
Yom HaZikaron is at night, I see.
Also, 8 o'clock.
Right, at 8 o'clock at Yom HaZikaron, that's right, for the soldiers. So some rabbis started to discuss this, and some people say, hey, especially the non-Zionist rabbis who don't like anything the state does. They say, this is Chukot HaGoyim. You're doing something that the non-Jews do. There's only a few problems with that statement. Not very many countries in the world do this. This is not really a non-Jewish custom. It's a unique custom, which is not very commonly done, to have a siren where everybody stands. The concept of a moment of silence does exist. But the most important thing is that we have to not just say, do other people do it or not other people do it. The question is, why are we doing it? Is there a good reason for it? Is it just pointless custom? We're commemorating the soldiers. There's nothing wrong with that. It's a big mitzvah. And sure, some people say, well, just stand there silently. It's a new version. We never, in Judaism we have, if you want to commemorate somebody, you say Tehillim. You recite words of prayer. So the state of Israel chose not to say words of, in addition to the words of prayer, they chose to have a moment of silence. There's nothing wrong with it, as long as you're not imitating any kind of pagan practice. So I think it's very important that we don't knee-jerk reaction. Oh, anything that's a Gentile practice we're not allowed to do. You have to think about, is it a Gentile practice, or is it maybe just a universal practice? Maybe something that has meaning to it.
I think student had a question.
Yes, there's a lot of questions here. I just want to finish up, and then I'll take all the questions. I know, Dimitri, you're waiting. I know it's tough. You were waiting for a question.
I'm not asking for myself. I'm asking for my brother.
That's sweet of you. Thank you. I just wanted to get that point because we're running out of time. I'm looking at the clock. In any case, yes, I think most communities do put up some flowers or some branches in the synagogue, and most of us like it, and nobody considers it an idolatrous practice. But there are some synagogues where they follow the Gra, the Gaon of Vilna, and he was very against it. He said it's too similar to we could call it the Christmas tree, right? That's the association in all of our minds in the modern era. And so we can't do that. But it is a festival of spring going on summer. There's lots of flowers that are blossoming, and it's the festival of the harvest, as we said before. So it goes together with lots of nature. It's a very nature-connected holiday.
And we are agriculture people also.
What do you mean?
It's us agriculture.
The harvest. The Torah? What?
From the Torah, they were agriculture culture people.
Right. We're coming back to the land of Israel, where we have cultivating our own land now. So that might be a little bit of a Zionist element to developing the land. And so people want to be a little bit more focusing on the earthy. Now, a few minutes for questions before we have to say goodbye, because our time is up. And then we have a very special long weekend with Shavuot and then Shabbat. So, no question? Or you did have a question? He's first. Okay.
I have a question, but if it's too long, we can do it other time.
Let's see.
But how does Judaism view Mother's Day?
Mother's Day. It's an interesting question. I don't know that there is something called Mother's Day in Judaism.
No, let me say in Israel.
In Israel also, they ruined it. I'm not against Mother's Day. I think it's a lovely custom. I grew up with Mother's Day, and it's very nice to give special attention to mothers. Here in Israel, they kind of ruined it. They made it Family Day.
Because it was Feminism Day. Mother's Day was like a communist.
I see. Yeah. Anyways, but it's a made up custom. But I don't think there's anything pagan about it. I don't think there's any chukota going. Nothing wrong with as long as there's nothing immodest about it, and there's nothing meaningless like a ritual that people make up for no good reason. The good reason, it's always good to commemorate your mother every day.
Yeah,
right? So
that's
like Rabbi said. So I don't think that's a problem. Dimitri, you had a question.
Yeah, I just had a comment regarding saying like Christians wear kippah, why should wear a kippah then? The question is not either they breathe or washing their hands or brushing their teeth.
Yes.
The question is what we're doing and why. We have to understand everything we're doing in the very deep understanding.
I agree.
Right? Yeah.
Correct. Good point.
When you know what exactly you're doing and why, then you will know what's wrong and what's right.
Correct. Exactly. That's why we're here to study. Baruch Hashem. Yes, Yisrael, you wanted to ask something?
I just think in the Sabbath and the holiday, we should community together.
Yes. Yes.
But sometimes we walking in the public area,
yes.
The Gentile, not Jewish.
Yes.
They ask where I want to go. We should don't touch the non-Jews or help them. You understand?
I do understand. I think that people are afraid, but you don't have to be afraid. Every person who is created by Hashem has to be respected. And if he needs help him out. It's a great mitzvah to help someone. And there's nothing wrong with talking to people who are not Jewish. And if they need directions, give them directions. And if nothing wrong with hugging them and touching them and giving them a kiss. Obviously, we don't touch the opposite sex because it might lead to mixed dancing, as they say. But I'll tell you one consideration that sometimes we have as Orthodox Jews is that we don't use cars on Shabbat. And sometimes what happens is that a Jew is driving his car, because not everybody studied in Machon Meir and learned that you're not allowed to drive a car on Shabbat, and they just stop their car and they roll down the window and they say, I see you're local here, can you tell me how to get to here and there? And so they want you to give them directions. You go right, and then you go left, you go right and left. So essentially, you think about it, you're helping a Jew violate Shabbat. So there's a difficulty. If there's another Jew and he wants you to assist him violating the Shabbat, then I could see a problem. But if it's a non-Jew, he's allowed to drive his car. There's no problem. Tell him go right, go left. You're just assisting him. There's nothing wrong with giving assistance to a non-Jew, right? Does that answer the question? Is it clear now? There's nothing wrong with being nice to non-Jews and smiling at them and saying hello and saying have a nice day.
And some Yom Tov we cannot touch or some of the money.
Right. I wouldn't touch the money. So you say I don't.
The people.
You could touch the people. You can touch the people. Just don't touch the money. Yes, Ravi. Last comment.
Okay, I want to say something because the meaning of Shavuot for me personal.
Okay.
Now I'm going
Great.
to my wife to Giradona.
Wonderful. Enjoy. Yeah.
But what I want to say is, our religious life we can feed by reading Torah, all the books. I mean Torah.
Yes.
General. But what is amazing for me is, before we received the Torah, we had about, if I'm not mistaken, 1,500 years without a Torah, only the oral Torah.
Oral Torah.
And it's amazing how the people, they worshipped Hashem and they had this strong believing without any book, without anything written.
Right.
Only the oral Torah. 1,500 years.
Yeah.
It's amazing. And this is, I can learn about this so much because we can feed ourselves by reading Torah, but we need to remember it's much more. It's not only the moment we read. 24/7 we need to have the Torah inside of us and to remember this beautiful historical moment.
Amazing. Thank you. Beautiful words.
Thank you.
And I wish you all a Chag Sameach and Shabbat Shalom. And Sunday, there's no day off. Sunday, we have class. Zat Hashem. We're back next week. Okay? Isru Chag, we get to have chillent on your Isru Chag. Isru Chag is Shabbat. And even if it wasn't,